this dubstep, dude. That's what that is. I would listen to, I don't really listen to dubstep. I did in like 2012 for a little bit. But I'll tell you what I would listen to is like crab step. Like okay, here's the problem. I guess if you called it that, people would think of like that dancing crabs on the beach meme. But I'm talking about like Mr. Krabs, like Clancy Brown, is that his name? You know, doing the Mr. Krabs voice, like I with like kind of like beach dropping. I would listen to that. I'd listen to at least one song like that. If there was a like name your price thing on Bandcamp, I'd probably pay at least $5 for that if I saw that. Here's a kind of self-reflection question that more people need to ask themselves, which is, if you had a kind of sizable burlap sack and you could put one thing in it, what would you put in it? Now, in the case of Sonic, the obvious answer would be rings. But most people in the world are only going to marry one person. So unless you're getting collectible Super Bowl rings, that's not a good answer. Me, I don't know what I would put. See, this is the problem. People don't think about it. I feel like a lot of people would be like, haha, I'd put money in there. But here's the issue. Let's say you have a giant burlap sack full of money. And what are you going to do with that? You're going to go to the bank? You're going to put it in the bank? Like, there's a good chance your neighbor's going to be outside with like a garden hose just waiting to spray you down, and then all the money gets soggy, and then what do you do? So it's kind of one of the, I mean, I guess you could say, I want coins. But you're going to carry on a sack full of coins? Maybe Sonic has the right idea with the rings, because if the rings are made of any sort of valuable metal, you could at least melt them down, and then maybe you could get some value off that. But if it's a monkey's paw kind of scenario, and there's like something going on with it, like maybe it's all like, I don't know, stolen Super Bowl rings or something, right? So you have a giant sack full of rings, and that's when the police show up at the door. And it's like, huh, I guess I shouldn't have asked for rings or coins. And I shouldn't have asked for dollar bills, because then my neighbor would spray me with a garden hose. Now, if you got your sack full of dollar bills in the winter and there was snow on the ground, you might be getting somewhere, because then your neighbor isn't going to be able to spray you down with a frozen hose. But what if they had the hose and they had a lighter and they're outside smoking and they heat up the hose with a lighter? It probably wouldn't work, but it might. And if you had a sack full of money, is that something you would, like, would you risk that? That's a gamble. Maybe if you lived next to the bank, but I don't think most people do. I mean, statistically, the amount of banks compared to the amount of residential residences. If you knew ahead of time that you were about to get a sack full of dollar bills, you could try to move next to the bank, but banks aren't usually in residential neighborhoods. I guess if you're in a more urban location, there's a better chance of proximity. And there's a lower chance of your neighbor having a garden hose ready to go. So that might be your best bet. if you knew ahead of time. But I don't know, it still seems risky. There's got to be something better to have in the sack than that. You need, so because it's burlap. Like if you had like one of them waxed cotton, or not waxed cotton. Yeah, what is it? What is that waxed material that they used to use? I should know what it is because I have a literal like rain cloak in this material, but I don't know what the material is. It's waxed something. Anyways, they used to use it back in like the 1800s and it was like waterproof, but like they're hard to clean. You got to kind of take them outside and hose them down, which is probably what your neighbor's doing, which is why your sack's at risk. So that's tough. Here's the other problem. Even if you went out in the winter with a sack of money, a sack full of dollar bills, you might get splashed by a car. Like, even if you took the cab, the moment you get out, your neighbor with a garden hose might be there with a car, and he might intentionally drive through a puddle of slush. And that wouldn't be as bad as, I guess, getting hosed down by the water hose, but I still don't know if that's like a viable use. If you had a sack of money, I straight up, I wouldn't put the dollar bills in the sack. Honestly, straight up. I think you'd be better off going with like potatoes. Yes. No. I'm pretty sure that was, but anyway. Could you put like, I guess it all kind of hinges on like what the rules are of like the sack, right? Because you could fit like some weird non-Euclidean stuff in there. You might be pretty good. I guess the rules would depend. Like, could you theoretically coat the sack in like Vanta Black or something like that? TNT in the sack. No, that's a bad idea. You shouldn't say that. That's NSA illegal. The only people who are allowed to do that were AC/DC, and that's because they're Australian. Plus, as soon as your neighbor hits you with a garden hose, maybe not so useful anymore. Unless that's what you want. So it's like if that's the movie equivalent to like a gun full of blanks, and you brought the moist TNT to the Hollywood set and you said, I have prop TNT, it doesn't work. I wonder how much that, you might have a point. I don't know if that's what I would go with, because it would be hard to explain if you got stopped and asked about it. Yeah, I feel like it'd be a very long explanation. But I think that's maybe a better choice than dollar bills if you could find the right resale value. So if you had connections and you could sell it to Hollywood, absolutely. But if you were like, I'm going to sell my soggy TNT on Craigslist, nah, I wouldn't. And I'm an expert on Craigslist. I met Craig. I don't know if it was the real one or not, but he said his name was Craig. See, my answer for what I put in the sack probably would have been potatoes, but I think I literally just want French fries. I haven't had French fries in like a year. I think that's probably because I used to have a formula for making French fries. I don't anymore. I misplaced it. Plus, you get sick of them after a minute, you know?